This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Wednesday, January 21st, 2026. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
President Trump lists his accomplishments on the anniversary of the start of his second term in office. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
Airplane problems for President Trump on his way to the World Economic Forum in Switzerland. And Lindsay Halligan is out as U.S. attorney. We'll have details.
Federal prosecutors have served subpoenas to multiple officials in Minnesota.
How can you have a state, and yet they're fighting us?
I'm Jennifer King.
A federal appeals court taking up 10 commandments in classrooms.
Child is going to learn the criminal code.
I'm Clayton Neville.
On Wall Street, investors were spooked by a possible trade war with Europe. Stocks tanked. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
Carlos Beltran and Andrew Jones have been elected to baseball's Hall of Fame. I'm Gethin Coolbaugh.
All ahead on America in the Morning. President Trump has now officially been in office in his second term for a year. And on Tuesday, he made a rare appearance in the White House briefing room to praise the work done by his administration, Trump 2.0. John Stolnis has more from Washington.
The president began his remarks by showing members of the White House press corps pictures of mugshots of criminals he says ICE has detained during the raids taking place in Minnesota over the last few weeks.
Many of them murderers. These are all out of Minnesota, just Minnesota. I say, why don't you talk about that more? Because people don't know. Do you want to live with these people?
The president also remarked about the shooting death of protester Renee Good at the hands of an ICE officer nearly 3 weeks ago. That has led to massive protests and threats by Democratic lawmakers to shut down funding for the agency.
And, you know, they're going to make mistakes sometimes. ICE is going to be too rough with somebody, or, you know, they're dealing with rough people. They're going to make a mistake. Sometimes it can happen. We feel terribly. I felt horribly when I was told that the young woman who was had the tragedy. It's a tragedy. It's a horrible thing. Everybody would say, ICE would say the same thing.
Trump admitted the administration has not done a good enough job telling the American people about the arrests of criminals in Minnesota, nor have they articulated the right messages about the economy.
We ended Biden's stagflation. We were in stagflation. That's a disaster. That's far worse than inflation. As you know, he had the biggest inflation in the history of our country. They say 48 years. Pick your choice. But they had the biggest inflation in the history of our country. We have it right down to a normal number now. We're going to get it even a little bit lower.
During the press conference that lasted nearly 2 hours, Trump talked about his continued pursuit of Greenland. Over the weekend, the president sent a text to the president of Norway, claiming that part of the reason he's pursuing Greenland so hard is because Norway didn't give him the Nobel Peace Prize.
Should have gotten the Nobel Prize for each war, but I don't say that. I say millions and millions of people. And don't let anyone tell you that Norway doesn't control the shots, okay?
Trump's threats of military action and heavy tariffs against European allies opposed to the U.S. takeover of Greenland has some worried the president is trying to tear NATO apart.
I think that we will work something out where NATO is going to be very happy and where we're going to be very happy.
How far are you willing to go to acquire Greenland?
You'll find out.
The remarks came just before the president left for Davos, Switzerland, where he will deliver a closely watched speech in front of European leaders at the World Economic Forum. John Stolnis, Washington.
President Trump arriving in Davos, Switzerland for the World Economic Forum later than planned after Air Force One had to turn around and go back to the U.S. due to what was described as an electrical issue on the plane. European leaders, along with Canada's Prime Minister, have concerns over Trump's threats to annex Greenland and uneasiness over increasing tariffs raised by the U.S. against nations that have backed Denmark. Correspondent Julie Walker has the latest.
So our response will be unflinching, united, and proportional. But beyond this, we have to be strategic about how we approach this issue. And this is why we are working on a package to support Arctic security. First principle, full solidarity with Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark. The sovereignty and integrity of their territory is non-negotiable.
At the World Economic Forum in Davos, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen adding her name to those criticizing President Trump over his plans for new 10% tariffs on 8 countries that don't support his Greenland takeover bid.
Proposed additional tariffs are a mistake especially between long-standing allies.
And questions Trump's trustworthiness.
The European Union and the United States have agreed to a trade deal last July. And in politics, as in business, a deal is a deal.
The worst the countries can do is escalate against the United States.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent urging America's trading partners to sit back, take a deep breath, let things play out.
I would say exactly what I said after Liberation Day last April, when the president imposed tariff levels on the whole world. I tell everyone, sit back, take a deep breath. Do not retaliate. Do not retaliate.
Trump will address world leaders at Davos.
Our king will accompany me at the meeting, but it will have a different character than we had planned. It will probably be the message that we have to send. You're crossing red lines here. We either stand together or we will stand divided. And if we are divided, there is the end of an era of 80 years of Atlantism is really drawing to a close.
I'm Julie Walker.
The top stories of the day are sponsored by Sleep Number. Enjoy personalized comfort for better sleep night after night. And now the more you buy, the more you save on beds, bases, and more. Limited time only at Sleep Number or sleepnumber.com. When we return on America in the Morning, what's become the controversial 10 Commandments law? After these messages. America in the Morning continues. From the Great Lakes into the Northeast, snow continues. Here's the forecast from AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
A clipper that spread a general 1 to 3 inches of snow through the Dakotas and parts of the upper Midwest on Tuesday and into the night will continue to make its way eastward today, still with enough cold air and moisture to work with to create some snow. The storm will start the daylight hours over lower Michigan, including places like Detroit, also bringing some snowflakes to Ohio and even Kentucky along a cold front. As the storm tracks into the northeast, the snow spreads from west to east across northern and western Pennsylvania, upstate New York, even eventually into Vermont, New Hampshire, and western Maine. In addition, another burst of lake effect snow sets in even behind that cold front. All told through tomorrow, a wide zone of at least 1 to 3 inches of snow combined from the two events extends from the upper peninsula of Michigan to northeastern Ohio, the higher terrain of eastern West Virginia, and through much of New York and northern New England, with totals of up to a foot downwind of Lakes Erie and Ontario, as well as the southern part of Lake Michigan. That snow is all separate from a second clipper close behind the first that will bring another quick push of accumulating snow through this evening as it also dives out of Canada. AccuWeather winter weather experts say that a strip of territory from northeastern Montana to around the border of Illinois and Wisconsin has another 1 to 3 inches of snow in its future into the evening hours of today. Otherwise, the southern end of the cold front bringing snow to the northeast instead has some warmer air to work with to fuel rain from Texas to Tennessee, with another dry day incoming for today throughout the western United States. In Fresno, California, today brings plenty of fog and clouds, the high 57 today. For Shreveport, Louisiana, expect clouds and occasional rain today with the high also 57. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Simply search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. The Justice Department is handing out grand jury subpoenas in Minnesota as ICE continues to make apprehensions in a probe Democrats are calling a bullying tactic. Jennifer King reports.
It's part of an investigation into whether they impeded federal immigration officers. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz calls the DOJ investigation political theater, sparked by calls for accountability in the face of violence. St. Paul Mayor Kali Herr says she's unfazed by the tactics, in a statement confirming a subpoena from the U.S. Attorney's Office. At a White House press conference, President Trump defended Immigration and Customs Enforcement, holding up mugshots of people arrested in Minnesota during Operation Metro Surge.
How can a place with 10,000 criminals, how can you have a state? And yet they're fighting us.
Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey says we shouldn't have to live in a country where people fear that federal law enforcement will be used to play politics. His office was ordered to produce a long list of records to a grand jury on February 3rd. The subpoenas come as the Trump administration urges a judge to reject a lawsuit by Minnesota and its largest cities to stop the operation that has roiled Minneapolis and St. Paul for weeks. I'm Jennifer King.
A U.S. Court of Appeals is weighing arguments over Louisiana's controversial 10 Commandments law. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
The full Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals is taking up a lawsuit brought by a multi-faith group of families in 2024 against a law that requires public K-12 schools and colleges to display the Ten Commandments in classrooms. The case has been combined with another stemming from a similar law in Texas. Oral arguments were heard on Tuesday. It's the law's third time in court and ultimately could be headed to the Supreme Court next. Last year, a three-judge panel on the Fifth Circuit declared Louisiana's law plainly unconstitutional, but the full court later agreed to Louisiana's request to rehear the case. Critics think the law imposes a religious doctrine on students violating their First Amendment right. Advocates for the law say the Ten Commandments are the basis for our judicial system.
I would advise parents that they find some sort of moral code. You either read the Ten Commandments or your child is going to learn the criminal code.
Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry also citing a historical significance of the Ten Commandments. I'm Clayton Neville.
The U.S. defense budget prompts metal markets to new heights. That and more in business headlines when America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. A market pullback on Wall Street Tuesday. Here's Wednesday business headlines with CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning after a sell-off yesterday for stocks. The S&P 500 index plunged 2%, its worst day since October. The Dow tanked 870 points. The Nasdaq was down 560. Investors were spooked by President Trump's moves to take over Greenland. That seems to quickly be turning into a trade war with Europe. The Sell America trade globally gained steam yesterday. JP Morgan's Thomas Kennedy on CNBC.
I think the trade today is pretty obvious. It's Sell America. I think in the long run, this will end up being noise, but in the short run, we got to see what comes out of Davos.
The dollar is weaker. A Danish pension fund selling off $100 million in U.S. treasuries, citing the poor finances of the U.S. government. The president speaks this morning at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. That'll happen about 8:30 Eastern. Ritholtz Weld's Josh Brown tells CNBC he's not worried.
This is normal. We have these freakouts. We have these panics. If you want to take your portfolio and act like it's 1937 and we're about to invade Denmark, we're going to fight a war against Legoland, you're very welcome to do that.
Gold topped $4,700 an ounce yesterday, its third record high close of the year. Silver closed above $94 an ounce for its sixth record high of the year. Precious metals are not just seen as safe havens from volatility.
Clearly, the precious metals, it's the base metals, it's rare earth minerals. The geopolitical uncertainty definitely means more defense spending, and to produce defense equipment, we need more of these kind of metals.
That's Yardeni Research's Ed Yardeni on CNBC. Bitcoin fell back to 89,000 yesterday. Netflix shares fell last night in after-hours trading on decent quarterly results, but less of a positive outlook. Netflix is finding the money and updating its offer to buy Warner Brothers Discovery with all cash. Indiana University on its way to big money with that National College Football Championship under its belt over Miami Monday night.
This win, along with last season's great run, is going to drive NIL money, which is name, image, and likeness. It's going to drive money from donors. If you go back over the last 5 years, on Indiana football, spending has almost tripled. Coach Signetti himself got a new contract a couple of months ago. It's making him one of the highest paid coaches in all of college football. He's going to get about $4 million in bonuses from this championship run, on top of a salary that pays over $11 million a year.
CNBC's Mike Ozanian. On today's watch list, all ears on what President Trump says at the World Economic Forum this morning in Davos, Switzerland.
CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. Performance-enhancing drug-era athletes continue to be snubbed. That's when we return. America in the Morning, back after these messages. Attorney General Pam Bondi said Tuesday night that Lindsay Halligan is leaving her post as a federal prosecutor in Virginia. The announcement comes the same day that a federal judge barred Halligan from what he called her masquerading as a prosecutor. A U.S. district judge in November ruled that Halligan, a Trump loyalist, was unlawfully serving in that role. The judge had warned that Halligan would face disciplinary referrals if she continued to improperly refer to herself as the U.S. attorney. For another year, it wasn't Mark McGuire, Alex Rodriguez, or Roger Clemens that reached immortality. Correspondent Gethin Coolball reports on the two former star outfielders who were elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown.
Carlos Beltran and Andrew Jones have been elected to baseball's Hall of Fame. Beltran received 84.2% of the votes from the Baseball Writers Association of America in his fourth ballot appearance. Jones was picked on 78.4% of ballots in his ninth appearance. Chase Utley was the only other candidate to get at least half of the vote at 59.1%. Alex Rodriguez received 40% in his fifth appearance. Manny Ramirez received 38.8% in his 10th and final appearance. There were 11 blank ballots. I'm Gethin Coolbaugh.
America in the Morning for Wednesday, January 21st, 2026 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
President Trump made a surprise appearance in the White House briefing room.
God is very proud of the job I've done.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Working to avoid another government shutdown. I'm Clayton Neville.
When it comes to ICE operations,
they're going to make mistakes sometime.
So says the president. I'm Rich Johnson.
Julia Letlow is running against Senator Bill Cassidy in a heated Louisiana GOP primary. I'm Sue Aller.
Democrat Mikey Sherrill was sworn in as New Jersey's 57th governor.
Hi, Mikey Sherrill.
I'm Ed Donahue.
Actor Timothy Busfield has been released from jail pending his trial. I'm Kevin Carr.
Back after these messages. America in the Morning continues to the plains and upper Midwest, where accumulating snow will continue to fall today. With the forecast, here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Not even a day after a clipper dropped accumulating snow from the Dakotas through southern Wisconsin and into parts of lower Michigan, a very fast storm track will carry yet another clipper towards some of the same areas with another round of up to a few inches of snow today. This storm will have even less moisture to work with than Tuesday's storm. There's just not enough time for the moisture to build back in, but a general 1 to 3 inches of snow can be expected through this evening from far northeastern Montana through the center of North Dakota into southern parts of Minnesota and toward the Wisconsin-Illinois border, perhaps staying a bit farther to the north of Chicago than the Tuesday storm, but still able to deliver some accumulation. Speaking of that Tuesday storm, it's making its way across the eastern part of the Great Lakes region and into the interior northeast and mainly northern New England through the day today and carrying the snow with it. Between that first storm today and the second one tomorrow, another broad zone of at least 1 to 3 inches of snow should extend from western Pennsylvania and northeastern Ohio through much of upstate New York, far western Massachusetts, and especially Vermont, northern New Hampshire, and all but southern Maine. However, this also kicks off more lake effect snow, and that snow may pile up close to a foot downwind of Lakes Michigan, Erie, and Ontario through tomorrow, and up to half a foot off Lake Superior. Wet weather is instead in store on the southern end of the precipitation, with showers and some areas of steadier rain from the eastern half or so of Texas into the Ohio Valley. Otherwise, the eastern seaboard looks quiet today, with strong high pressure off the west coast, keeping it dry for the west and into the southwest. The storm track will be focused to Canada in those areas, and through midweek, it looks like another round of dry weather overall. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. President Trump held a press briefing on the one-year anniversary of taking the oath of office for the second time. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani has a recap.
President Trump made a surprise appearance in the White House briefing room on the first anniversary of him retaking office. The president wanted to celebrate his first year, and at times it felt like he wanted to spend the next year doing it. To start,
boy, these are rough characters.
He spent 10 minutes holding up mugshots of those he says immigration authorities have arrested in Minnesota.
You're not getting bored with this, right?
And later held up a thick stack of papers with the word accomplishments on top.
It's big stuff, too. Look, we have the hottest country in the world.
Proceeding to throw the stack onto the floor. There were, of course, tangents from Hell's Angels to Little League Baseball, and the president seemed to soften his stance on Greenland amid threats to take over the island and tariff European nations who don't back him.
We will work something out where NATO's going to be very happy, and where we're going to be very happy.
And near the end of an hour and 45-minute appearance,
I think God is very proud of the job I've done.
Sagar Magani, Washington.
With the political world paying close attention to global issues involving the United States, lawmakers on Capitol Hill are focused on legislation that would keep the government open beyond the end of this month. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
It was just months ago that the U.S. government shut down for more than 40 days. A deal was eventually reached, but with the back half of January upon us, another potential shutdown is looming. Lawmakers will have to agree to terms of a bill introduced this week. The deadline for a decision is January 30th. This as President Trump acknowledges 1 year since taking office for his second term.
I don't think any president has had a better first year than we've had.
Despite the historic government shutdown last year, the president touted his administration's reputation at home and abroad.
But I inherited a mess, and now we have the hottest country anywhere in the world.
Meanwhile, House leadership was in London.
I told the president that I felt that my mission here today was to encourage our friends and help to calm the waters, so to speak, and I hope to do so.
House Speaker Mike Johnson speaking with the UK Parliament about threats from Russia and China surrounding tension over President Trump's desire to acquire Greenland.
We can have thoughtful debate about among our friends about how best to counter these threats. We all certainly agree they must be countered.
On Capitol Hill, a more than 1,000-page bill was released that includes money for the Departments of Labor, Homeland Security, and Health and Human Services. $838 billion set aside for the Defense Department, which will be used to give military personnel a 3.8% pay bump. Another focus of the legislation is money for ICE, which would continue to receive $10 billion this fiscal year. Some lawmakers, though, pushing back on that as protests over the killing of Renee Good persist nationwide. Democrats said the bill did not include provisions for more operations in Venezuela or the Caribbean. I'm Clayton Neville.
The federal government is pushing back against officials in Minnesota who have objected to the massive surge of ICE and Border Patrol agents, not just before the microphones, but in court. Details from correspondent Rich Johnson.
Federal prosecutors delivered grand jury subpoenas to Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, and several other public officials. They're required to produce a long list of documents for a grand jury early next month, including, in the subpoena's words, any records tending to show a refusal to come to the aid of immigration officials. In a statement, Frey said we should not live in a country where people fear that federal law enforcement will be used to play politics or crack down on local voices they disagree with. Meanwhile, the raids continue around the Twin Cities, scooping up people in the country illegally, and the occasional U.S. citizen. Even so,
what we do is legal, ethical, and moral. Everything we do every day is legal, ethical, moral, well-grounded in law.
Border Patrol Commander Gregory Bavino's words were a bit of a contrast to what President Trump said on Wednesday.
They're going to make mistakes sometimes. ICE is going to be too rough with somebody, or, they're dealing with rough people. They're going to make a mistake. Sometimes it can happen. We feel terribly.
Minnesota State Senator Bobby Joe Champion has another opinion about the president's comment.
Just a way of not coming full circle around admitting that ICE has been pretty destructive.
Champion told NBC it's been clear from the start that ICE agents aren't targeting just the criminal aliens they claim. Case in point, Chong Li Tao, an American citizen of Hmong descent, who was pulled out of his house wearing nothing but his underwear by ICE agents on Sunday. Tao told the AP he tried to tell the agents he was not the person they were looking for, and after a while they realized it.
My son grabbed my ID, showing to them. They just say, okay, you're good. So they free me.
Homeland Security later said that agents were targeting 2 convicted sex offenders who lived in that house. Dow's family says that's not so, and the AP's search of the Minnesota Sex Offender Registry found the nearest registered sex offender living more than 2 blocks away. I'm Rich Johnson.
When we return on America in the Morning, power usage up, data centers to blame. After these messages. After receiving an endorsement from President Trump despite not being a candidate, Louisiana Congresswoman Julia Letlow announced she will take on fellow Republican Bill Cassidy for his U.S. Senate seat. Sue Aller has details.
Letlow, first elected to Congress in 2021, says she will fight for conservative values and has the backing of President Trump.
I have fought alongside President Trump to put America first. Standing up for our parents, securing our borders, supporting law enforcement.
A key difference in the race is Cassidy's vote to impeach President Trump following the January 6th Capitol riot, a move Letlow has highlighted as a contrast in leadership. Cassidy spoke with Letlow by phone and responded on X saying, "I will continue to do a good job when I win re-election. I am a conservative who wakes up every morning thinking about how to make Louisiana and the United States a better place to live." The primary is shaping up as a high-profile, potentially expensive contest, testing Trump's influence in Louisiana and setting up a major showdown in the Republican Party ahead of the midterm elections. I'm Sue Aller.
New Jersey has a new governor. Correspondent Ed Donahue reports on the swearing in of Mikey Sherrill to lead the Garden State.
Democrat Mikey Sherrill was sworn in as New Jersey's 57th governor.
I, Mikey Sherrill.
Sherrill was in Congress for 4 years, was a Navy helicopter pilot, and is just the second woman to lead New Jersey. She spoke about her state's role in the Revolutionary War.
This election proved that the people of New Jersey recognize the parallels. That we see a president illegally usurping power.
Sherrill adopted a defiant tone against the Trump administration.
These are some weary, weary years. But I will be damned if in this state at this time we cry any silent tears. We refuse to be silent.
Sherrill replaces fellow Democrat Phil Murphy, marking the first time in more than 6 decades a political party has controlled the New Jersey governor's office for 3 straight terms. I'm Ed Donahue.
And baby makes 4. Correspondent Mike Pisoli reports that there's a new arrival in the vice president's future.
Vice President J.D. Vance and his wife, Second Lady Usha Vance, are expecting their 4th child. The couple announced Tuesday that Usha Vance is pregnant with a boy who is expected to be born in late July. The announcement comes as the Republican vice president has spent years passionately advocating for Americans to have more children. The baby will join the Vances' other 3 kids, Yuan, Vivek, and Maribel. The couple took to social media to thank military doctors and staff members, whom they said, quote, ensure that we can serve the country while enjoying a wonderful life with our children.
Correspondent Mike Pizzoli. It's happened once again in Spain, another train derailment, this time outside Barcelona, where a train driver was killed and more than 30 passengers hurt. This as flags are at half staff as the nation is in 3 days of mourning for the victims of Sunday's high-speed train collision. Correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports the death toll is rising.
The official death toll of Sunday's accident has risen to 41 after searchers found another body trapped under a damaged carriage that emergency crews lifted with a crane. Interior Minister Fernando Grande Marlaska tells reporters searchers believe there could be 3 more bodies still trapped in the wreckage. Grande Marlaska also announces from the inspections on the ground and several meetings with the companies related to the accident, Spain's Commission of Investigation of Rail Accidents has determined it will be necessary to analyse in a lab the rails from the point where the derailment happened, as well as to inspect in detail the roller bearings of the EIO train. The crash took place Sunday evening when the tail end of a passenger train on the route from Malaga to the capital Madrid went off the rails. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
The Trump administration and a group of governors is pushing electric companies to lower rates due to the surging use of data centers. The new old tech guy, Chuck Palm, has that story.
Data centers are essentially giant server farms that power everything from new generative AI to massive quantum computers. According to a recent AP report, the White House and the governors from states like Virginia, Maryland, and Pennsylvania are pressing the PJM interconnection operator, the nation's largest electric grid, covering parts of 13 states and Washington, D.C., to take urgent action. They're calling for an emergency power auction where big tech companies can bid on 15-year contracts to build new power plants. The goal? Make sure the costs fall on the data center operators like Google, Meta, and Microsoft rather than the everyday home user that are continually facing higher bills. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum put it plainly, "We know that the demands of AI and the power and productivity that comes with it, it's going to transform every job and every company in every industry." Energy Secretary Chris Wright echoed that there is a need for growth of a new generation to support power without interruptions. PJM has responded with its own plan, including faster approvals for new plants and options to curtail power to large users like data centers during emergencies, even though the tech industry has pushed back. For more, visit thenewoldtechguy.com. I'm Chuck Palm.
Midweek Sports is in with America in the Morning's Robert Workman.
Outfielders Carlos Beltran and Andrew Jones have been voted into baseball's Hall of Fame. It took a while for each, Beltran getting 84% of the writers' votes in his fourth time on the ballot, Jones earning 78% in his ninth and next to last try. 75% is the minimum. Both center fielders hit over 430 home runs. Beltran was a 9-time All-Star with 3 Gold Gloves. Jones made 5 All-Star teams, won 10 Gold Gloves, and will be the first player from the island of Curacao ever to be enshrined. The Mets swung a trade with the White Sox Tuesday, getting outfielder Luis Robert Jr. in exchange for infielder Luis Angel Acuna, brother of Ronald Acuna Jr., and a minor league pitcher. NFL coaching carousel, the Titans and former Jets coach Robert Saleh are still working out the details on a reported 5-year contract, while Mike McDaniel, let go by the Dolphins but on the short list for several other head coaching openings, will reportedly go to the Chargers as offensive coordinator, according to multiple sources. And in college hoops, number 25 Miami of Ohio beat Kent State in overtime. It was the Redhawks' first game as a ranked team in 27 years. They improved to 20-0 on the season, one of just 3 remaining unbeaten teams in the nation. That's Wednesday Sports.
When we return on America in the Morning, A-list actors' pretrial hearing, and who's shown up on the nurses' picket line in New York City. When America in the Morning returns after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Thanks for joining us. Actor Timothy Busfield had his pretrial hearing in New Mexico. Entertainment reporter Kevin Carr reports that Busfield will be released pending his trial.
Prosecutors petitioned the court to keep the actor in custody until his trial on 2 counts of sexual misconduct.
There are no conditions of release that this court can impose to secure the safety of this community.
The alleged victims were child actors on the television series The Cleaning Lady, and Busfield has denied any inappropriate behavior. His attorney, Amber Fairberg, said the parents were taking revenge because the children were later recast.
They were victimized by their own parents, taking 85% of the money they made on a TV show and then manufactured into victims as revenge.
Alan Cadillo, the cinematographer on The Cleaning Lady, explained to the court why the allegations could not have happened on set.
If the child was on set, there was at minimum of 10 people there on the set with them. It's just how it works.
District Judge David Murphy agreed with the defense.
I cannot find that the state has proven by clear and convincing evidence that there are no release conditions that would reasonably protect the safety of any other person in the community. So I am denying the state's motion.
The judge was swayed partly by Busfield turning himself in.
This defendant self-surrendered and submitted himself to this court's jurisdiction, demonstrating compliance with the court order for his arrest.
Busfield was released under certain conditions, including not possessing firearms, alcohol, or illegal drugs, and to not contact the alleged victims or discuss the case with witnesses. I'm Kevin Carr.
It's another day on the streets and not in the emergency rooms of some of New York City's largest hospitals as the nurses' strike is into its second week. Correspondent Julie Walker reports on who showed up to support the 15,000 nurses walking the picket lines.
When we fight!
It's the 9th day of the nurses' strike in New York City, and they were joined Tuesday by Mayor Zoran Mamdani and Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders.
This is about safe working conditions. This is about a fair contract.
Don't tell me you can't provide a good nurse-staff ratio when you're paying your CEO at New York Presbyterian $26 million a year.
The Democratic Socialists are calling on hospital executives to return to the negotiating table to resolve the contract impasse at Mount Sinai, Montefiore, and New York Presbyterian.
We call on every side to come back to that negotiating table. Have a swift and urgent resolution, and to know that no matter what day it is, we will be here, we will be standing with you, and we will be saying the exact same thing.
The union says it has held one bargaining session with each of the 3 hospital systems since the strike began.
And so I am here to say the same thing that I said on the first day of this strike, which is that we are encouraging everyone to return to that bargaining table.
The union says hospitals are seeking to reduce nurse benefits. Hospitals say they've proposed maintaining current employer-funded benefits, which they say exceed what most private employees receive.
A strike is an act of last resort. What workers want is to be back at work. So what this will mean is making that possible. And so we call on every side to come back to that negotiating table, have a swift and urgent resolution, and to know that no matter what day it is, we will be here, we will be standing with you, and we will be saying the exact same thing.
Julie Walker, New York.
America in the Morning for Wednesday, January 21st, 2026. It's produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.